I'm George Whipple, one-on-one with Jeff Landis. With me is a dear friend of 30 years. We practiced together for 30 years, Jeff Landis. Now, you have a reputation as being the Gen Z whisperer. What is the Gen Z whisperer, and how can we model ourselves on that type of behavior?
What we're seeing is we have to remember a few things. They're going to be more open about mental health and wellness programs, and you're going to have to look at your benefits in that. There is a desire for work-life balance. Another thing to consider is feedback. The current generation, Y and Z, how they receive feedback is very different. You're having employees enter the workforce in super competitive industries and jobs that have never received any negative feedback. They've gone through school with, just like you had at Columbia, I'm sure, 4.0 grade point average, and they've had all these great grades, and all of a sudden, how do you give them that feedback when they maybe need constructive improvement? Or they expect regular feedback, but there's a real art to that. The other thing that is also evident is they want transparency. Years ago, a company would just issue a policy, and this was the policy, and everyone accepted it. We're not seeing that anymore in the current generation. They want to know why this is the policy, who made the decision. They want to be part of the decision, and that's a challenge. It's great to be inclusive and create that environment, but it can create decision paralysis sometimes too if you have to, bounce a decision off somebody. But I think we are definitely seeing a need for companies to reinvent and change how they provide feedback.
How are you dealing with, and what advice are you giving clients
Sure.
on the new work environment that we find ourselves in?
A lot of the employers I work with are pretty set in what they're doing, whether it's 3 days in the office, 2 days, 4 days, whatever it might be. Managers still are trying to figure it out in terms of how to manage employees. For example, I dealt with this recently. I hear from the HR folks and from the clients repeatedly, this employee is not as effective at home. This employee missed a key meeting, et cetera, et cetera. They're not responding to texts or emails or whatever. But what I'm also seeing is nobody's giving them the feedback. Nobody's managing their performance. We have developed, and we're actually going in and really training managers to how to give feedback and how to manage these expectations, whether you're working in the office on a Tuesday or at home on a Friday. If somebody screwed up something, somebody missed a meeting, somebody doesn't show up for a call, that has to be immediately documented and that has to be immediately addressed. When you're not seeing the person, out of sight, out of mind, you're not necessarily as focused on managing their performance, but you have, and maybe it means that there are regular check-ins on the days that are home with supervisors and employees and things of that nature. But I think that it's really important that managers can't be a manager just in the days in the office.
What are your recommendations for dealing, not so much as a lawyer, but as someone who's got great experience in the workforce management area? What are we doing with employees who are making the effort, like I do 5 days a week, to come into the office?
I don't think you necessarily need to have a happy hour every day, or some companies, are trying that, or, group things. I think it's sometimes that individual one-on-one attention makes a huge issue, because one of the other things that we're seeing as a generational shift as well in the workplace is this need to be included, right? And wanting to feel part of the team. The one-on-one connections are super important. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that people are more outspoken or more open about mental health and wellness issues, but it's changed the name of the game in the workplace substantially. And what I'm seeing now in the mental health requests for accommodations, also even in professional service organizations, are requests to limit hours, which is very, very challenging, right? If a job is 9 to 5 and you want to accommodate somebody and say work 9 to 3, that's one thing. But when you're in a job that's 24/7 and somebody is coming up with physician notes that they're only allowed to work 50 hours a week or 40 hours a week, that changes your business model a lot too.
What are the most important things that employers should keep in mind when these accommodations are asked for?
So I think from the legal piece, we have to engage in the interactive process. I think too often sometimes if an employer or HR is not trained, the immediate knee-jerk reaction is, well, just, we can't do this. There has to be some consistency for sure, but we have to treat people, and on a case-by-case basis and engage in the interactive process. You don't necessarily have to just grant the accommodation that's requested. That's the point of the interactive process. So I do think, and some of our clients' employers have certainly been effective in pushing back a bit as well and really thinking outside the box for alternatives. No, we need you here, but we understand you have some of these issues that make it anxious for you to commute during busy times. So we'll shift your hours a bit, or we'll come up with alternative days or alternative scheduling. I think employers have to think about their benefits a bit and have to think about what programs they're offering related to wellness and all. That's a big shift as well.
Great to see you. Thanks
Nice
for joining
to see you.
us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.